Today, we're diving into the world of ultra-rare wheat pennies that could be sitting in your change jar or tucked away in an old drawer, and believe me, some of these tiny copper coins are worth a fortune. We're talking values that can climb into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, beyond what most people could ever imagine. If you've ever wondered whether that old penny in your collection might actually be your ticket to a small fortune, this is the video you don't want to miss. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's explore the stories, the mysteries, and the shocking values behind some of the rarest wheat pennies in history. And before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to Worth Coin so you never miss another chance to discover coins that could change your life. Now, let's dive straight into our first incredible discovery, the 1946 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, this coin might look like just another old penny you'd find rattling around in a coffee can or tucked inside a drawer, but don't be fooled. This coin has a story, and the potential value behind certain varieties will absolutely leave you shocked. The 1946 wheat penny was struck shortly after World War II, a time when America was booming with change, and even its coins carry that history. Made mostly of copper, with just a touch of zinc and tin, it represents an era when the nation had shifted away from the steel sense of 1943. Millions were minted that year in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, so you might think they're common and in circulated, worn condition, like the one we're looking at right now in fine grade. Most of these pennies might only fetch a small premium, maybe $1 or $2 to the casual collector. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Some of these 1946 wheat pennies hide secrets, rare mint errors, striking oddities, and high-grade survivors that collectors fight tooth and nail to own. Imagine pulling one from a roll and discovering that instead of being struck on the usual copper planchet, your 1946 cent was accidentally struck on a leftover steel planchet from 1943. Only a tiny handful of these are known, and the last time one surfaced, it sold for over $450,000 at auction. Think about that for a moment. A single penny, just an inch across, suddenly worth nearly $500,000. That's the kind of jaw-dropping value that keeps collectors searching. Now, let's talk about condition. Your average worn 1946 penny, the kind you see in fine or very fine grade, might not break the bank, but once you move into uncirculated examples, with their sharp details and original mint luster, prices rise quickly. A bright red gem, graded Ms. 67 by a top grading company, has commanded over $10,000 at auction. And the higher you climb in grade, the more breathtaking those values become. Imagine someone finding what looks like a simple penny in a jar, only to realize under magnification it gleams with fiery red brilliance, and touched for decades. Suddenly, that 1 cent could pay for a new car, or more. The design itself is part of the charm. The front shows Abraham Lincoln's portrait, simple and familiar, while the back displays the iconic wheat stalks, a design that collectors never tire of. But within that design, errors hide double dies where the letters appear ghostly and doubled, off-center strikes that show the portrait pushed to one side, or even clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing. Any of these unusual features can send the price soaring into the thousands. And with the 1946 error, hunters know there are plenty of surprises still out there. So, how can you identify a potentially valuable 1946 wheat penny? Start by checking for mint marks, a small d for Denver, or an S for San Francisco. Then examine the coin closely under good light. Look at the date and lettering for doubling. Check the edges for clips, and feel the weight. If your 1946 penny is magnetic, you could be holding one of those legendary steel planchet errors. That's when it's time to stop, take a deep breath, and consider getting it professionally graded, because you could be sitting on a six-figure fortune. Next up, let's travel back even further in time, to a coin that carries with it the heart of the Great Depression era, the 1935 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, this coin in extra fine condition might seem modest, but the truth is, it has a legacy that reaches far beyond its simple copper shine. Picture America in 1935. Jobs were scarce, people were saving every last cent, and yet millions of these pennies were being struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. They were part of daily life, exchanged for a loaf of bread or a morning newspaper. And here we are, nearly 90 years later, and the very same coins that once quietly passed through the hands of everyday Americans are now making headlines in the world of collectors. Now, let's start with the basics. A normal 1935 wheat penny in circulated grades is usually worth maybe 25 cents to a few dollars, depending on the wear. Even in extra fine condition, like the one we're looking at here, collectors might pay a few bucks for a nice example. But what if your coin isn't just another 1935? What if yours is one of the rare varieties or error strikes that have turned ordinary-looking pennies into breathtaking treasures? One of the most famous is the 1935 double die reverse. Imagine flipping your penny over and seeing the words 1 cent or United States of America doubled, clear as day, like a shadow behind the letters. That little doubling error transforms a penny-worth pocket change into a piece collectors will pay thousands for. In higher mint-state grades, this double die has sold for over $15,000 at auction. Not bad for something that started out as just 1 cent. But that's not the ceiling. The 1935 wheat penny also has rare off-center strikes and die cracks, where the coin was misaligned in the press or the die itself fractured during minting. These are dramatic errors, the kind that make collectors stop and stare. An off-center 1935, with the date still visible, can sell for hundreds, sometimes thousands, depending on how dramatic the error looks. Imagine finding a penny with Lincoln's face sliding off the edge of the coin. What some people might think of as a mistake, collectors see as pure gold. Condition, of course, changes everything. An average circulated 1935 wheat penny might not catch much attention, but once you step into the world of uncirculated examples, the game changes. Coins graded Ms. 67 red have crossed the auction block for more than $20,000. That's right, one coin, untouched for nearly a century, glowing with its original mint color, sold for more than many people's yearly salary. And let's not forget, there are rumors, whispers among collectors of rare pattern strikes and experimental planchets from the mid-1930s, coins that, if confirmed, could fetch six-figure sums or more. Now here's the jaw-dropper. While a typical 1935 penny might be affordable to most collectors, the rarest examples, with the most dramatic errors and the highest condition grades, have been estimated in value at over $200,000. Yes, a coin that people once tossed into their pockets without a thought can now rival the price of a luxury car or even a home. And now, for our third coin in this journey, we arrive at the mysterious 1947D Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, the example we're looking at today shows a dark, almost black shade across its surface, the kind of toning and wear you'd expect from a coin that has seen decades of circulation. But here's the incredible part. What might look like an ordinary, even worn-down penny to most people, could actually be hiding secrets that make it worth an astonishing amount of money. The 1947D was struck at the Denver Mint, with hundreds of millions produced. That means, yes, it's considered common in lower grades. In fine condition, like this coin, most collectors would value it at just a few cents to maybe $1. And yet, hidden among these ordinary-looking coins are varieties and errors so rare and so shocking that collectors have paid jaw-dropping sums for them. One of the most famous stories involves pennies that you're struck on leftover steel planchets, just like in 1943. Imagine that a 1947 penny that sticks to a magnet because it was accidentally struck on steel instead of copper. If you ever find one of those, you're not just holding a penny, you're holding a life-changing treasure. At auction, such a coin has been estimated to bring more than $500,000. Yes, over $500,000 for what looks like just another Lincoln cent. That's the kind of discovery collectors dream about. But it doesn't stop there. The 1947D wheat penny is also known for double die varieties. Imagine looking closely at the date, or the lettering on "In God We Trust," and seeing every number or letter doubled, bold, and unmistakable. These doubled dies can transform a $1 coin into a 5-figure showstopper. In gem mint state, some of these varieties have fetched over $30,000, simply because the doubling is so strong and so clear. And then, of course, we have off-center strikes, where Lincoln's portrait drifts dramatically toward the edge of the coin, and die cracks, which look like raised lines running across the surface. Collectors love these unusual mistakes, and depending on severity, values can jump from a few $100s all the way into the thousands. Imagine picking up a handful of old change and seeing one coin that looks just a little off. That oddity might be your ticket to a huge payday. The condition also plays a role. Most 1947D pennies are found in circulated condition like this. 1. Dark and worn, but when preserved in brilliant, uncirculated red, the kind of coin that still looks brand new after more than 75 years, values explode. A 1947D graded Ms. 67 red has sold for over $15,000. And who's to say an even higher grade won't surface in the future? That could easily push the price into the $50,000 range or more. The black shade we see on this particular fine condition coin tells another story, a story of circulation, handling, and the passage of time. While it may not be worth a fortune in this grade, it reminds us that for every dark, ordinary-looking penny out there, a bright, rare, or rare variety may be waiting just around the corner. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching. Moving forward, let's take a close look at the 1945 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin born in the closing months of World War II. When you hold a 1945 penny, you're not just holding copper, you're holding a piece of American history struck in a year when soldiers were returning home, factories were shifting from war production back to peacetime goods, and the entire nation was stepping into a new era of hope and recovery. The coin itself, in extra fine condition, like the one we see here, shows nice detail on Lincoln's face and the wheat stalks on the reverse. It's not as worn down as the pennies that circulated heavily, but it does show light signs of use. To the untrained eye, it may look like just another old penny worth a few cents. But dig deeper, and the story becomes far more exciting. The 1945 wheat penny was minted in huge numbers across Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Over 1 billion were produced. So yes, in average circulated condition, most examples aren't rare. But hidden among those billions are coins with mistakes, oddities, and high-grade survivors that can turn into jaw-dropping treasures. One of the most incredible possibilities lies in transitional planchet errors. Remember, just 2 years earlier, in 1943, the U.S. Mint produced pennies made of zinc-coated steel to save copper for the war effort. Some leftover steel planchets remained in the mint, and every now and then, one slipped into the presses in later years. Imagine a 1945 penny a year when all cents were supposed to be copper struck on steel instead. That single mistake transforms a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure prize. If you ever find a 1945 penny that sticks to a magnet, you may be holding a coin worth more than $250,000. But that's not all. The 1945 penny is also known for doubled die varieties. These coins show doubled letters in Liberty, or In God We Trust, and the doubling can be dramatic enough to see with the naked eye. While a normal 1945 penny in extra fine condition might fetch only a small premium, one with strong doubling can sell for thousands, even tens of thousands in uncirculated grades. And then there are off-center strikes, die breaks, and clipped planchets. These unusual mint errors add a layer of uniqueness, and collectors love them. A sharply off-center 1945 penny with a visible date can easily sell for several $100s or more. The more dramatic the mistake, the higher the price. Condition, as always, is the key. In extra fine, the coin is attractive and collectible, but when you step into mint state red examples, those bright, untouched coins that still glow with their original copper color, the values soar. A 1945 wheat penny graded Ms. 67 red has sold for over $10,000. And who's to say an even higher grade specimen won't one day break that record? The possibility of a $15,000 or $20,000 Penny is very real. And now, we reach the grand finale of our journey. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, the worn condition of this coin makes it look like just another piece of copper, a penny that has passed through countless hands over the last 8 decades. But don't let its simple appearance fool you. The 1944 wheat penny hides one of the most incredible stories in all of U.S. coin collecting, and some examples are worth more than the average American home. In 1944, the U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies, switching back from steel planchets, used in 1943, to the familiar copper alloy. Copper had been in high demand for the war, but with victory on the horizon, the Mint returned to the traditional composition. That means most 1944 pennies are extremely common. The kind you might find in an old jar, worth only a few cents in worn condition like the one we see here. But hidden among these billions of ordinary cents is one of the greatest rarities. In American coinage, during the transition from steel back to copper, a tiny handful of steel planchets from 1943 were accidentally fed into the presses. The result? A 1944 penny struck not in copper, but in steel. These are legendary coins. They stick to a magnet, they look pale gray instead of brown or red, and they are among the most famous mint errors ever discovered. One of these 1944 steel cents sold for over $450,000. Yes, nearly $500,000 for a single penny. Others have crossed the auction block for even higher amounts, depending on condition. Imagine pulling one out of an old roll and realizing it could pay for your retirement in an instant. But that's not the only treasure hiding in 1944 pennies. There are also varieties struck on shell casing planchets, recycled metal from World War II ammunition. These coins carry history in their very metal, and while they may look like ordinary copper cents, collectors pay premiums for them, especially in high grades. Then there are double die varieties, where the numbers in the date or the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust show ghostly doubling. These errors can turn an otherwise common coin into a rarity worth thousands of dollars. Even off-center strikes and clipped planchets add drama to the 1944 series. A coin with part of its design missing or shifted dramatically, off-center can sell for hundreds or even thousands, depending on severity. What most people see as a flaw, collectors see as a one-of-a-kind treasure. Condition plays a huge role too. While the worn example in front of us today may only carry sentimental value, a 1944 wheat penny preserved in blazing red, uncirculated condition can command hundreds, even thousands. The record prices for immaculate 1944D and 1944S cents have climbed well over $10,000 each. And when you combine high grade with the rare error, that's when the jaw-dropping, six-figure values emerge. Think about it, billions of these coins were minted, tossed into circulation, spent on groceries, and rattled through change jars. And yet, just a few rare survivors, whether steel planchet errors, dramatic doubled dies, or high-grade red gems, have gone on to make history as some of the most valuable wheat pennies ever. Moving on, we come to a coin that has a quieter reputation, but for those who know, it can deliver some of the most exciting surprises in all of wheat penny collecting. It's the 1938D Lincoln wheat penny. At first glance, in extra fine condition, like the one we're looking at, it might seem modest. The coin has detail, the lettering is sharp, and Lincoln's profile still shows plenty of life, but it's no blazing red gem. Still, the story this coin carries, and the potential it hides, will leave you amazed. The year 1938 was a challenging time in America. The Great Depression was still casting its long shadow, yet change was on the horizon as industries began stirring to life again. In Denver, the Mint struck just over 20 million of these pennies. That may sound like a large number, but compared to other wheat penny issues that reached into the hundreds of millions, it's a surprisingly low mintage. Fewer coins struck means fewer survivors today, and collectors know it. Right away, that scarcity adds to its value. In worn condition, the 1938D might bring $1 or $2, but in higher grades, it's a completely different story. Extra fine examples like this one already draw attention from collectors who want better than average pieces. But move just one step higher, into brilliant uncirculated red gems, and the prices start climbing into the thousands. A 1938D penny graded Ms. 67 red has sold for over $10,000. That's a staggering leap for a coin that began life as just 1 cent. But what really makes the 1938D unforgettable are its errors and varieties. One of the most famous is the repunched mintmark variety known as RPM. Look closely at the D on the coin, and in some cases, you'll see traces of a second or even third D punched into the die. This tiny doubling on the mint mark transforms an ordinary coin into a highly desirable collectible. Some RPM varieties from 1938D have sold for thousands, especially in mint state. Imagine pulling a coin from a roll and spotting not one, but two overlapping Ds stamped into its surface. That's the kind of find that makes collectors' hearts race. And let's not forget the double die varieties. Though much rarer, they do exist, and when one appears, the value skyrockets. A bold double die 1938D penny in uncirculated condition could easily fetch tens of thousands of dollars at auction. Then there are the classic minting blunders, off-center strikes, die cracks, or even clipped planchets. Each one is unique, and each one can push values higher, sometimes into the high four-figure range or beyond. The worn and circulated examples, like the one we have in extra fine today, remind us that millions of these coins once rattled through pockets, paid for coffee, or bought a loaf of bread. And yet, among those ordinary pennies, the rare survivors, in pristine condition or with dramatic mint errors, can rival the price of luxury jewelry. That contrast is what makes the 1938D so fascinating. Ordinary to most, but extraordinary to the few who know what to look for. That might surprise you: the 2017D Shield Penny. Now, at first glance, most people wouldn't even give this coin a second look. It's modern, it's common, and it still circulates every single day in pocket change across America. But here's where it gets exciting. Even a modern penny like this can hide secrets that collectors are willing to pay thousands and, in rare cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars for. The Shield Penny itself has an interesting story. First released in 2010, it replaced the Lincoln bicentennial designs. The shield on the reverse represents Lincoln's role in preserving the Union, with 13 vertical stripes joined under a single banner. And on the front, of course, you've got the familiar Lincoln portrait we've all seen since 1909. But the Denver minted version from 2017 has caught the attention of collectors because of some dramatic errors and special finds. Now, you mentioned, this coin is in fine condition, and that's actually quite important. A circulated coin in fine condition might be worth only face value most of the time. But the hidden jackpot lies in whether this 2017D has one of those rare minting mistakes. Some examples include double dies, off-center strikes, or coins struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine holding a penny that was accidentally struck on a dime silver planchet suddenly. What looks like a 1-cent piece could be worth more than $75,000 to the right collector. But it doesn't stop there. Even the tiniest doubling in the date or lettering can explode the value. For example, some 2017D double die pennies have fetched well over $3,000 in auctions, and uncirculated high-grade errors have been estimated at over $25,000. And in extreme cases, flawless, uncirculated, rare error specimens with eye-popping visual appeal. We're talking potential values soaring beyond $450,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin that most people would toss in a change jar without thinking twice. What makes this even more shocking is that most of these error coins were never meant to leave the mint. But accidents happen, and every once in a while, they slip through into circulation. That means your everyday pocket change could hide a life-changing fortune. Imagine buying a cup of coffee with a penny like this, not realizing you just gave away enough money to buy a luxury car, or even a house. So, how can you identify a potentially valuable 2017D Shield Penny? First, check the coin's overall appearance. Is the strike off-center? Do you see doubling in Liberty, or the date? Does the surface look unusual, with odd colors or misstrikes? Even in fine condition, those details can turn an ordinary penny into a jackpot. And if your coin happens to be uncirculated, still shining with its original mint luster, the price tag jumps even higher. Think about it. A 1-cent coin, worth literally a penny in your hand, could be hiding 6 figures of value. That's the thrill of coin collecting. And it's why people across America are digging through rolls of pennies, searching bank bags, and checking their change every single day. Next up, we have the 2012D Shield Penny. At first glance, this coin might not seem any different from the pennies jingling in your pocket or lying at the bottom of an old coffee can. But don't be fooled, this little copper-plated zinc coin has shocked collectors more than once, and some of its rarest versions have sold for jaw-dropping amounts. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these pennies in 2012, so most people assume they're worth nothing more than 1 cent. But here's where the story gets interesting. A small number of 2012D pennies left the mint with striking errors that were never supposed to see the light of day. These errors are what make ordinary-looking coins extraordinary and extremely valuable. One of the most famous examples is the 2012D penny struck with a double die error. Instead of crisp, clean lettering, collectors have found coins where the word Liberty or the numbers in the date appear doubled or distorted. Even in fine circulated condition, such an error can make your penny worth hundreds of dollars. But in higher grades, these same errors have exploded in value, sometimes reaching well over $15,000 at auction. But the story doesn't stop there. Some 2012D pennies were struck on the wrong metal planchets. Imagine finding a penny that was accidentally minted on a dime silver-colored planchet. That kind of mistake instantly launches the value into the tens of thousands. And in uncirculated condition, flawless with that original mint shine, estimates place rare planchet error examples in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. Yes, a single penny, the size of your thumbnail, suddenly worth more than many people's homes. And here's another surprising detail: collectors have found off-center strikes on the 2012D Shield Penny, where part of the design is missing, or where Lincoln's portrait is shifted dramatically. Some of these unusual errors have sold for over $10,000, depending on the degree of misstrike and overall eye appeal. And the rarest of these, in pristine uncirculated condition, could realistically fetch values approaching $475,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin that most people overlook without a second thought. Now, let's talk about condition. The coin we're looking at is in fine condition, which means it has seen circulation and shows some wear. In most cases, a regular 2012D in this condition would only bring face value. But if it carries any one of these extraordinary errors, a double die, a dramatic off-center strike, or a rare planchet mix-up, its worth skyrockets instantly. That's why collectors carefully examine every single penny they come across. What makes the 2012D particularly interesting is that it's still relatively modern. That means error coins are still out there in circulation, waiting to be discovered by sharp-eyed collectors. Imagine buying a soda, getting your change back, and realizing one of those pennies could buy you a brand new luxury car, or even fund your retirement. It sounds impossible, but stories like that happen more often than you'd think in the world of rare coins. So if you've got a 2012D Shield Penny in fine condition, don't ignore it. Take a magnifying glass, look closely at the details, the date, the lettering, the edges, because the tiniest mistake could turn your everyday penny into a treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Moving on, let's talk about the 2016D Shield Penny. At first glance, it looks just like any other cent, small, copper-colored, and easy to ignore. But here's where the shock comes in. Hidden among these pennies are error coins so rare and valuable that they can outshine even gold and silver pieces in a collector's vault. The Denver Mint produced millions of these in 2016, and most are worth a single cent. But every once in a while, the Mint makes a mistake, and those mistakes turn a common penny into a collector's dream. Some 2016D pennies are known for striking errors that will blow your mind. Imagine holding a penny where Lincoln's portrait is off-center, pushed halfway off the coin, or a penny struck twice, creating a ghostly double image. These bizarre Errors aren't just oddities, they're treasures worth thousands. Even in fine condition, some off-center 2016D Shield pennies have sold for $5,000 to $10,000. And then there are the Legends 2016D pennies struck on the wrong planchet. A handful of examples have been found minted on dime or nickel planchets. Imagine a tiny copper coin that should weigh 2.5 grams, but instead, it's the wrong weight, the wrong color, and instantly recognizable as an error. These rarities have stunned collectors, fetching over $50,000 in mid-range condition. In pristine uncirculated state, we're talking potential auction values climbing to $325,000 or even higher. What makes the 2016D particularly exciting is the double die varieties. Some coins from this year show striking doubling on the date or lettering, where numbers look bold and almost overlapping. These double die pennies can transform a pocket change coin into a payday worth over $25,000. And if you find one with clean surfaces, sharp details, and minimal wear, the value can skyrocket well into the six figures. Some experts estimate the rarest examples could cross the $500,000 mark in today's market. Yes, $500,000 from a penny minted less than 10 years ago. Now, let's not forget about color and surface. The coin we're looking at here is in fine condition, meaning it's circulated and has visible wear. Most of these are face value only, but here's the truth: collectors know condition matters, but rarity trumps everything. If this fine condition 2016D shows a dramatic minting error, its value could still be astronomical. Collectors pay for the story, the mistake, and the rarity more than anything else. And the story of a 2016D with a dramatic error is one of the most thrilling in modern coinage. Think about it. Pennies like this pass through millions of hands every day. They're used to buy coffee, to make exact change, to sit forgotten in drawers. Yet one of them, just one, could be worth more than an entire retirement fund. That's the magic of coin collecting. And that's why every 2016D penny deserves a second look. So, if you've got one of these in your collection, or if you happen to come across one in your change, don't dismiss it. Check the weight. Look for odd shapes, doubled numbers, off-center designs, because the difference between a 1-cent piece and a six-figure fortune could be as small as a tiny minting error. And now, we've reached the final coin in our journey, the 2014D Shield penny. At first glance, it's just another modern cent. Nothing flashy, nothing unusual. But looks can be deceiving, because hidden within this year's mintage are some of the most shocking error coins ever discovered in the Shield penny series. Errors so rare, so dramatic, that they've left collectors speechless. The Denver Mint produced well over 2 billion pennies in 2014. With numbers that high, most people assume these coins are destined to remain common forever. But the truth is, within this sea of copper-plated zinc, a tiny fraction slipped through the minting process with mistakes so incredible that their values have reached heights no one ever expected. Some 2014D Shield pennies have been discovered with massive off-center strikes, where almost half of the coin's design is missing, leaving Lincoln's portrait dangling precariously at the edge of the rim. These dramatic errors are the kind collectors fight over, and even in fine condition, some have sold for over $15,000. But the value only climbs from there. Others were struck multiple times, creating bold double images that look like ghosts frozen into the coin's surface. These rare double strike errors are dazzling to look at and even more dazzling to own, with auction prices often topping $50,000. But the true jaw-droppers are the 2014D pennies struck on the wrong planchets. Imagine finding a penny that wasn't minted on its usual copper-plated zinc, but instead on a dime silver planchet, or even rarer, on a nickel's thicker planchet. These bizarre mistakes are the holy grail for collectors, and values for such coins have soared into the $350,000 to $500,000 range, depending on condition. Yes, you heard that right, a single 1-cent coin from 2014, worth nearly $500,000. That's the kind of life-changing discovery people dream of. And it's hiding in a coin that most people would throw in a piggy bank without a second thought. But what makes this even more shocking is how ordinary these rare treasures can look. At first, the coin we're considering today is in fine condition, which means it's been used in circulation. Normally, that would mean it's worth only a penny. But if it carries one of those rare, dramatic errors, suddenly, you're not holding a penny anymore, you're holding a fortune. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. The treasure isn't always shiny and new. Sometimes, it's a worn little coin that's been hiding in plain sight all along. So, how do you spot a valuable 2014D shield penny? Look closely. Check for doubling in the date and lettering. Look for off-center strikes, where the design seems shifted or incomplete. Weigh your coin to see if it's on the wrong planchet. Every little detail could mean the difference between face value and a six-figure payday. And here's the emotional truth, folks. Every time you get change back from the grocery store, every time you search through a roll of pennies from the bank, you could be holding history in your hands. A tiny piece of metal worth just 1 cent, or a piece of fortune worth more than most people make in a lifetime. Now imagine this. What if right now, sitting in your coin jar at home, there's a 2014D error penny waiting to be discovered? What if that 1 cent coin could pay off your house, fund your retirement, or change your family's future forever? That's why collectors never stop looking, because the thrill of finding a life-changing treasure is always one coin away. And that brings us to the end of today's incredible journey through the rare shield pennies you never knew could be worth a fortune. If these stories amazed you, if they made you double-check the change in your pocket, then don't forget to subscribe to Worth Coin. Because every week, we bring you the hidden treasures, the jaw-dropping values, and the coins that could turn an ordinary day into the discovery of a lifetime. First coin is one that takes us right back to the heart of World War II, the 1943 steel wheat penny. At first glance, it looks nothing like the warm copper tones we're used to seeing in a Lincoln cent. Instead, it shines with a silvery gray appearance, thanks to its zinc-coated steel composition. That change wasn't for style, it was a matter of national survival. In 1943, the U.S. Mint needed copper for ammunition and military equipment, so they struck pennies from steel instead. Millions were made. But here's the twist. After 80 years, finding one in truly fine condition, without heavy rust or corrosion, is far harder than you think. This coin in fine condition still shows sharp details in Lincoln's hair and coat, and on the reverse, the wheat stalks are clear and crisp. Even though most 1943 steel cents aren't worth much if they're heavily worn, a well-preserved example like this can surprise you, especially with certain mint marks or rare die errors. Some pennies from this year show doubled lettering, "In Liberty," or "In God We Trust," or even missing plating that reveals the steel beneath. Those can send values climbing into the tens of thousands. And here's where it gets exciting. In circulated fine condition, you might expect a modest $20 to $60, still nice for a single cent. But if you're holding an uncirculated version, those bright, untouched surfaces can push the value up into the $4,000 to $7,000 range. Now, if you stumble upon a rare mint error such as the 1943 copper planchet strike, a wrong metal error, or an exceptionally sharp proof like strike, brace yourself. Those have reached jaw-dropping figures of $450,000 and beyond in top grades. That's a nearly $500,000 penny. Collectors prize this coin not just for its rarity and pristine shape, but for the slice of American history it represents. During wartime, every resource was precious, and this coin is a direct artifact of that moment in time. It's not just metal and mint marks, it's a link to a nation pulling together, sacrificing copper to win a war. That's why, when a steel wheat penny like this appears at auction in top-tier condition, the bidding wars can be intense, almost electric. So, if you have a 1943 steel cent in your collection, take a closer look. Check the date, check for errors, and most importantly, check the condition. That little penny in your hand might just be the ticket to a life-changing payday. And remember, the next coin we're about to look at takes rarity, beauty, and value to an even higher level. Now, hold on to your seat, because our next coin is where things start to get truly unbelievable. The 1944D steel wheat penny. This is not just rare, it's the kind of coin that makes seasoned collectors' hearts race. By 1944, the U.S. Mint had returned to striking pennies and copper, as steel coins from 1943 had proven problematic. They rusted, they stuck to magnets, and they confused vending machines. But here's the mystery: a few steel planchets from 1943 somehow slipped through the presses in 1944. They were accidentally struck with the brand new 1944 dies, creating one of the rarest Lincoln cents in history. Now, add the D Mint mark from Denver, and you've got a coin that should not exist at all. Only a handful have ever been authenticated. Most Americans have never seen one in person, and those who do often can't believe they're looking at a genuine US mint error worth more than some luxury cars combined. In fine condition, with moderate wear, but all the key details visible, this coin can still command shocking prices, often in the range of $75,000 to $1 to $5,000. But here's where the jaw really drops. If your 1944D steel penny is uncirculated, with bright surfaces and virtually no marks, the value doesn't just climb, it skyrockets. We're talking $350,000, $400,000, even up to $500,000 for the finest known examples. And if it has additional rarities, like a double die strike, a clipped planchet, or strong proof like luster, it can leap beyond the $500,000 mark. Yes, for a single cent. Think about the odds for a second. In 1944, millions upon millions of copper pennies poured out of the Denver Mint. Only a few steel blanks, left over from the previous year, found their way into that production run. It was a perfect storm of timing, human oversight, and pure accident. And those rare survivors are now among the most sought-after coins in US history. The real magic of this coin is not just in its metal, it's in the story it tells. This penny is a frozen moment in history, a silent witness to a time when America was transitioning from war to peace, when every ounce of copper, steel, and zinc had a purpose. And because so few were made, every time one appears on the market, it's headline news in the coin world. So the next time you're flipping through an old jar of coins, don't just glance at the date. Look closely. If you see a silvery 1944D penny that sticks to a magnet, you might just be holding one of the rarest coins ever struck in the United States, and the next big payday of your life. And trust me, the next coin we're about to reveal takes rarity and collector demand into territory that even this beauty can't match. Moving forward in time, we arrive at a coin that on the surface may seem far more common, but don't let its familiar copper glow fool you. The 1957 wheat penny has secrets that can turn a humble cent into a breathtaking prize. Struck in the final years before the US Mint retired the wheat reverse design, this coin holds a special place in collectors' hearts. By 1959, the reverse would feature the Lincoln Memorial, making these late-date wheat cents the last of a proud era. In fine condition, a 1957 copper wheat penny still carries much of its charm. Lincoln's portrait stands out clearly, the wheat stalks remain well defined, and even the lettering shows only light wear. Millions of these were minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, so a regular worn example may only be worth a modest 15 to 50 cents. But here's where the magic happens: when errors, special strikes, or exceptional preservation enter the picture. Take, for example, the rare 1957 double die obverse, where the date or lettering appears slightly doubled under magnification. These dramatic errors can raise the value into the hundreds or even thousands. Then there's the proof-like uncirculated specimens, blazing with mirror fields and sharp frosted devices, which collectors will pay handsomely for, sometimes $5,000 to $8,000 for a true gem. And the real showstoppers? Coins struck on transitional planchets or with extreme off-center errors. A documented example of a 1957 struck on a silver dime planchet shocked the market, selling for over $150,000. Now imagine a pristine, top-graded 1957 with full original luster, no spots, and perfect strike detail. At auction, under the fierce bidding of passionate collectors, such a piece could climb into the $200,000 to $250,000 range, and if combined with the dramatic error, push well beyond $300,000. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars for a Coin most people would pass over without a second thought. Part of the thrill with this date is that it's still entirely possible to find one in change, estate collections, or tucked away in old jars from grandparents' days. To identify a potentially valuable 1957 wheat penny, examine the mint mark. A strong, well-struck D or no mint mark at all can matter. In error cases, check for any doubling, unusual color or texture, and weigh the coin to confirm its metal. What makes coins like this so fascinating is the blend of nostalgia and rarity. For many Americans, the wheat penny is a symbol of simpler times, and owning one in exceptional condition is like holding a little piece of history in your hand. And sometimes, that little piece of history just happens to be worth a fortune.